guys, how are you? Welcome to another episode of Learning Up podcast. I'm Daniel Marcos, your host, CEO of the Growth Institute. And today we're here with a good friend and very, very close to me. I'm in Austin, you're in Dallas. It's incredible. We don't see each other that often. We see each other in Zoom way more, and we're very, very close. Mark has been a coach and been inspiring CEOs for over 30 years, helping with the leadership team and really be able to think bigger. Act bolder and really make a big impact in their companies and, of course, in their life and communities. Mark has spent the first 25 years career building sales teams since 2011. He's been a resource for leaders looking to build world-class culture that performs at higher levels. And we're going to talk a lot about culture today and a lot about learning in companies. And he is a John Maxwell certified leadership coach. He's also a certified speaker professional. And of course, scaling up coach like me for many, many years. And that's why we usually see in events outside of Texas, and we don't see each other in Texas. So, hey, Mark, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you for having me, Daniel.
So, hey, it's been awesome to be able to know you. You're very, very regarded in the community. You've been one of the coaches with most experience. But what I really like about you is that you work a lot in leadership and culture. And as you know, because of Growth Institute and everything I do, I care a lot about culture. I really believe the only way to grow a company is growing the leadership team and the team. And if you grow the team is going to grow the company. And if you have the right culture, you're going to have a culture of accountability and learning and all that. So
culture is the great game changer, isn't it?
So let's talk first about culture. And people say, okay, what is culture? How do you define culture?
Well, I think culture is what people do when nobody's looking. You know, I tell this story, Daniel. My son went to Texas A&M, and I remember the very first football game we went to. You know, it was boiling hot, September in Texas, and it was halftime. And my wife and I got up to go get out of the sun and get in the shade, and the guy behind us tapped us on the shoulder. We'd become friendly with him. He said, "Where are you going?" We said, "Well, we're going to go to the restroom and cool off, get something to drink." He said, "No, at Texas A&M, we honor the band just as much as we honor the football team." Oh, wow. I remember I looked at my wife and I said, "Well, looks like we're going to sit down here and honor the band." And that's what I think culture in a company is. It didn't take the boss. It didn't take the chancellor, write me a letter, Mr. and Mrs. Fenner, this is how we operate at Texas A&M. It was the people around me holding me accountable to a standard that was a part of that culture at Texas A&M. So I work with leaders to get those same standards set, and then how do we create those same those same behaviors so that each other is holding each other accountable to those standards of behavior.
So what do you do in culture? You start with core values, but then what do you do? And by the way, you start with core values. I assume that. But then what do you do? How do you build the right culture?
Well, it starts with core values, and then it really starts with the leadership team modeling those core values. So how are we going to get intentional about modeling what that means? And I really learned this lesson from one of my early clients that scaled to over 200 million now. I started working with him at 35 million, but he had a core value that was called no ego trips allowed. And we really developed that core value to help the leaders hold themselves accountable as they scaled the business. And so every day he woke up thinking, how do I live into that value? And people loved working for Brian because he was approachable, he was humble. I remember the secretary telling me this story of him getting down on the floor and helping her clean up this mess of coffee that had been made. He was just the kind of CEO that everybody loved to be around because he really put that ego aside. I think the second thing that a company needs to do is they need to create some systems. So I love like a core value award or something on a periodic basis where people are nominating their peers and then celebrating the winner of who won those core value awards. So it helps keep the core values front and center. It recognizes people that are living the core values. And then the third thing is I like symbols. And symbols are really a great way to keep the core values alive. And one of my clients that implemented the core value awards, once the winner of those awards had been nominated, they took them to a really nice dinner at a really nice restaurant. All the founders would fly in, they'd invite their spouses. I mean, it was a big deal. It was a big deal to be a part of that dinner. But then they created these super awards plaques and pictures that were spread all over the office. And because in the beginning they did it monthly, today they do it quarterly, they were constantly changing, but it kept the symbol alive. Every time you got off the elevator, there's that superhero who won a particular core value award. And then the fourth is really stories. How do we create those stories that really bring them to life? And I've actually got a client, Daniel, that I'm working with down in San Antonio, and they tell this story of this technician they're based in San Antonio. He was in Austin on his way home on a Friday afternoon, got the phone call. Guess what? There's one more service call in San Antonio. And if you know anything about Texas traffic, that's not an easy drive. It's hot. He's ready to get home to his family. And his response, no problem. What's the address? And so that story has now become the name of the value, but that story just sums up the attitude that we're looking for in that company. And those are the four key things that I teach that I think really help bring the core values to life and really help them shift the culture of the organization.
Very, very cool. At Growth Institute, by the way, we're building a course, a master business course with CEOs directly teaching culture. We don't believe culture should be taught by a thought leader, should be taught by same CEOs. And really what I want them is them going with a camera inside their company and kind of going and show their messaging and having videos of dinners with their employees and the awards and all those kind of things. And that's what I really make. So people, when I kind of show these videos to the Growth Institute community, they've always said, now I understand once I see it. It's not seeing in the book and all that. Like, I really want to see the face of the employee. I want to see their picture whenever you come into the company, the dinner, how they celebrate with their spouse, the happiness of the spouse and the kids when they get the award. Those are the kind of things that really keep the culture alive and make it live. So I'm going to reach out to you to recommend a couple of CEOs to feature.
Yeah, would love to do it.
Let me go now to the learning part.
Okay.
We have at the Growth Institute been helping companies for 10 years to learn. And I get the CEO saying, hey, I want to be able to take 10 times more courses with you guys, or I want 10 times my employees taking your courses, but they don't get the time, they don't make it right, they don't implement it, all these kind of things. So let's talk about learning. How do you drive learning? How do you do culture of learning in an organization?
Well, it's a great question. It's a challenge we all deal with, right? I mean, it's the barrier to the art of the possible. I mean, what we deal with in scaling a company are limiting beliefs that say, well, that might work for somebody else, but I'm not sure it could work for me. Or they run out of ideas of how to continue. Let's look at the challenge with talent right now. I'm like, you cannot be reading enough about how to hone your culture, how to recruit A players, how to develop A players, how to retain A players. And, I have a saying that repetition is the mother of mastery. So it's not like I learned it once and now I know it and okay, I'm gonna go do it. So the courses that you offer and the master courses that you offer are just a fantastic way to operationalize it within a company. And I've got a set of your courses that I make available to all my CEO clients. And I've learned I want the CEO to go through the majority of them first, then cascade it down. That way, when their people are learning it, they can help reinforce it and really drive the new behaviors that we're looking for.
So if the CEO went through the program and they understand what the program is and the learning and all that,
that's right.
The drive is much easier with the team.
I made the mistake early on of saying like, oh, top grading, that's for HR, and sales is Jack Daly's course, hypergrowth sales, that's for the sales leader. And then cash flow story, oh, that should be for the CFO. And then I just learned that I'm going to run all those at the CEO first, because I want the CEO bought in to what's being taught. And if the CEO buys in, which I've not had one who doesn't, then let's cascade it down to the right functional expert. I think the other thing to do is to make the monthly meeting, put a component of learning in the monthly meeting. And the CEO can I like to, move responsibility or accountability for that learning around to a different member of the leadership team. So somebody owns it each month, and their job is to go through one of your courses, summarize it, and either watch part or all of it in the meeting, or teach it in the meeting and then encourage others to go back and watch it to create momentum around the topics that you all have in your library, which are fantastic.
Love it. Another way that we've been using it is we offer, or a company, a client offers to all their employees, and what they want is a report of who went through the course.
Yeah.
You make it available for 10 people and 6 of them go through it. What are the other 4 telling you?
Right.
So what do you do when you have someone that you really want to grow, that you really think they need some learning, say a book or an article, a video, a course, whatever it is, and they really don't want to do it? What are the ways to challenge team members to continue learning?
You know, this comes down to consequences, right? And accountability. You know, I'm really working hard, Daniel, with my clients to understand accountability. And accountability can't be mandated. Somebody's got to want accountability. And so I talk about fostering this culture of accountability. And part of that is identifying, you know, who wants it? I mean, who really wants to be accountable? And those are your A players, right? And accountability to me is focusing on the result, not doing the work. So I can say I'm a sales guy, I run sales meetings, but it's different if I say I'm the sales manager, I'm accountable for a $500 million net new business goal this year. That's just a whole different mindset in the business. So if somebody's not assuming the role of accountability, if they're not willing to take that on and they're not willing to invest the effort to learn, what are the consequences of that? And in a tight labor market, I think it's unrealistic to say we're going to fire anybody that doesn't have a growth mindset. But you can certainly put them in a role that gives them less visibility, less access to grow, but let them make that decision. And there's a fundamental principle I talk about, and that is you get what you tolerate. So if we make it an even playing field and one person's growing and investing in themselves and getting a lot better, and the person next to him's not, but I treat them the same, I comp them the same, I give them all the same benefits, pretty soon that person that's working hard and really investing in themselves, I run the risk that they degrade, because very few people will rise above the expectations of their peer group over the long haul. Some clearly will, but the problem is your culture sinks to the mean. So we got to find a way to incent those people. And oftentimes people will do more to avoid loss than pursue gain. So that fear that they're losing something, they're losing respect, they're losing access to resources, access to promotions in the company, can sometimes be the motivation they need to get off dead center and start learning. And by the way, Daniel, a lot of people, you know, reading books is not their thing. And that's what I love about your courses is that, you know, they can view them in the convenience of their automobile on the way to work. They can view them at their desk. We can make it part of the meeting rhythm. I mean, there's other ways to get that learning in other than them feeling like I got to sit down and quote unquote, read a book, which some people just struggle with for a number of different reasons.
For me, I love it. It's like I fight for time to read a book.
I know.
That quiet time, I just love it. But hey, with the amount of learning that I want to do, I have to go to different sources like video. And instead of reading a book 8 hours, I could sometimes get the right knowledge in an hour, hour and a half, and I'm done.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Right. So let's talk about leadership. If you want to grow a company, you have to grow the team, right? The first thing you have to grow is the leadership. How do you grow leadership in a company? Like, do you grow it from internal? Do you grow from the outside? What are the tools that you use to grow the leadership in the team?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it of course depends on where the team is. You know, do they have strong, dedicated leaders that are willing to invest in themselves and grow? And if they are, you know, my philosophy is to invest like crazy into those people, give them resources, give them tools, give them grace, you know, develop them. I feel like the job of a leader is to develop their people. You know, I feel like, even though I said earlier, hiring A players, I really feel you hire potential A players and you develop them into A players. So the whole mindset of the company has got to be one of development. And so the speed of the leader determines the speed of the pack. So the leader, the CEO, has got to embrace that idea of a growth mindset and has got to be reading themselves, attending your courses, bringing new ideas, pushing and challenging, going to events, overcoming that art of the possible and learning what could be next, what could we accomplish, what could be the breakthrough that could help us get to the next level. So it clearly starts at the top, but then the next level is creating that within the leadership team and identifying, do they get it or don't they? And if they don't get it, which a lot of times, Daniel, in scale ups, when we start working with them, they're stuck for a reason. And part of the reason is that leadership team is not investing in themselves. They're stuck. They think they know it. They're just doing status quo. They're just getting by. And if that's the case, as the leader, we got to make difficult decisions. And sometimes that involves replacing members of that leadership team. Remember, very few people will rise above the expectations of the peer group. You bring a strong A player into the leadership team that gets it, that's a growth mindset, that's bringing new ideas to the meeting all the time, that's studying, that's learning, that's going to conferences, and that elevates the others. Say, boy, I better either get on this train or the train's going to leave the station without me.
Right. So this is a tough question. So when you get someone that is really is doing the reading and taking the courses and all that, but that culturally they don't fit in the company, and they're trying really, really, really hard, and they're trying to outlearn everyone. But you in deep, you don't know. That they don't have the right cultural fit. What do you do there?
Well, you got to deal with those. I've created this term. One of my clients gave it to me, but we call them talent terrors. And people that perform but don't live our values and our culture, we've either got to get them to buy in, which it's amazing how many times sitting down and having an intentional conversation with them can get them to buy in. And if they won't buy in, you've got to make the difficult decision to move on. I mean, again, accountability is a choice. I mean, do they want it? And if they don't want it, then maybe they're not right for your culture. And it's having that discussion and saying, look, if it doesn't mean you're bad, doesn't mean I'm bad. It's just, here's what I'm looking for in the role. And if this is not what you're interested in doing and operationalizing and developing the behaviors to be able to live it, then I'm going to need to get somebody in here that will, and taking them through. I believe in a process. We do a verbal, we do a written, and then we do a formal performance improvement plan. And then we've got to move them out of the organization and get somebody in there that abides, believes in your values, and is willing to do what it takes to help the team succeed.
Right. Now let me go back, or let me close with scaling up. Why use scaling up as a tool, and what part of scaling up do you use for culture, for development, for growth, for all that, and how do you use them in company?
Yeah, great question. I mean, scaling up is just a performance platform. It creates a common vocabulary within the company, and it gets you focused on the right questions that you really need to focus on to scale your business. So I, of course, start with the one-page strategic plan. I get my clients really focused on what is their vision. Vision drives strategy. Strategy drives our priorities. Who's going to do what by when. I also put a big focus on our cash tools. And I really look to break the habit of focusing on revenue and get them focused on profitability and cash. We almost treat revenue like a four-letter word, and let's measure everything around gross profit, EBITDA, or operating cash flow, or a combination of those. And let's get the team understanding that not all revenue is created equal. And then we're looking for leaders now that can buy into that philosophy and going through and really using that functional accountability chart to say, the number one way to foster accountability is to create clarity. And if most CEOs sat down with members of their leadership team and said, I'd like for you to write down the top 3 to 5 accountabilities that you believe you have, I'm going to write down the top 3 to 5 accountabilities that I need out of your role, I can guarantee you there's a disconnect. And so the FACE tool helps us create that clarity. And then by doing it at the executive team level, then we can cascade that philosophy down through the job scorecards. And that's what really helps take a company from a culture of just doing work to a culture of true accountability that can win in their industry.
So an exercise I did just with the face tool. We went into a company and they were having a lot of challenges in operation. It was a public company in Mexico, like 7,000 employees. And they had a problem with execution, with operations. So we kind of noticed that. So we got and did the face tool. So I put in a room the 40 top managers of the organization, or directors, managers, all of them. And we got the face tool. So I said, hey, write a face tool, and then I'll ask some questions. So everyone writes it on their own. And when I get to who's in charge of operations, there were 9 different names. So I said, I raised my case. Like, if you're the top 40 guys in the company, and you have 9 different persons that you think is the head of operations, we have an operation problem.
You
Like,
got a problem, don't you?
We have a problem. And
That's
after
right.
that, after that, they were so easy to work with. They were so open, so clear. And that just drove everything in.
Well, that's the
simple.
whole thing of clarity, right? I mean, who is responsible for what, and or who is accountable for what, and that's what that tool helps us define.
Yeah, very, very cool. All right. You've been coaching entrepreneurs for many, many, many years. What is coaching for you? And I want to get the last 5 minutes on really coaching your team. We believe the best CEOs are not managers or leaders, and they use coaching as leaders. But a lot of them, they don't know how to coach your team. They just know how to tell their team what to do. So in the first stage of the company, usually you have to tell people what to do and you answer. And then you have to be a coach. So how do you coach your CEOs to be better coaches for their team?
Yeah, great question. Again, I'm going to come back to it. All starts with vision. So how I work with my clients is I get them to think bigger and think bolder. So, I remember one client that I started working with. It'll be 2 years, actually next month, 2 years ago, June. And when I did my first meeting, I was getting them to think about doubling the company. And they've been stuck for so long that they thought, Mark, there's just no way we can double the company in 5 years. I mean, we haven't grown the company in the last 5. What makes us believe we could double it? And I got them to trust me, and we committed to a 5-year goal to double the company. Well, long story short, they're going to double the company this year, 2 years in.
In 2 years, they're going
to now their vision is, oh my God, not only can we dominate our city, but we think we could dominate our state. And then could we start looking at taking what we built here? So their vision has grown tremendously. So when they've got a vision, when they know where they want to go and they know why they want to get there, the reasons seem to come. And our scaling up platform gives tons of tools, and then networking with other scale ups helps to do the same. So I believe the same is true when a CEO is coaching their people. So what does an A player CFO look like? What is a vision? Like, I've got a client right now that a CFO client, and his vision statement is, we want to go from being counters to being growers. So how do we do that? My team works with the business owners every week to forecast the business by listening to our business partners, bringing the right financial analysis, helping them understand what are the levers that are impacting profitability and cash flow in their respective business. So at the end of the month close is a non-event. So I can have the books closed down. This is a $600 million company, multiple divisions. I can have the books closed by the 5th of the month. Do you know how many scale ups, Daniel, when I start working with them, they think it takes 10 to 15 days to close the books. They get very little financial analysis, waterfall graphs, any kind of gap analysis to help their business leaders better run their businesses. So this is an idea. Does your CFO or controller, whoever's in that role, do they want it? I mean, can they think big? Do they want to take themselves the next level? That's step one. And then if they want it, what do they think are the steps that they need to learn to close that gap? So this kind of helps drive that growth mindset. Now, as a CEO, I'm coming alongside and developing that person into that kind of leader, instead of me telling them I need the books closed by the 5th of the month. I mean, this waiting 2 to 3 weeks is no longer working, and then them arguing with all the excuses of why they can't do it. I'd rather have that CFO own that vision. and say, this is who I am. I'm capable. We may not get there next week. We may not get there next month, next quarter, next year, but I'm going to start on the track of getting and building a world-class finance team, a world-class sales team, a world-class operations team, whatever area it is in the business, and then working backwards to what do we got to do to close that gap? And then how, as CEO, how can I coach you, bring resources like all the stuff that you all have, other training resources, send them to conferences, but look for that continuous growth, that continuous progress.
Perfect. All right. Hey, Mark, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, learn from you. I love your energy. I love your dedication, but you have amazing tools and ways of helping companies. So thank you for that. Just to close, what's your last golden nugget that or recommendation, any business recommendation that you want to close this with?
Well, I think scaling up is a series of iterative decisions, right? So don't let progress get in the way of perfection. Get started. I mean, the biggest thing that I deal with is companies get stuck and they're afraid to put the pencil to a piece of paper and make a decision. And I just try to close that gap between deciding and doing. Make the decision, get it on the paper, and then it's amazing what can come out of that. And if you got the decision wrong, redo it. We get together every 90 days. If we made a bad decision, let's change it. But let's get forward. Let's get that vision set. What do you ultimately want to become as a company? And then let's start taking steps towards making that happen. So don't let perfection get in the way of progress.
I 100% agree with you there. When I'm talking with a potential client or someone to implement scaling up, I said, hey, the first time we do the one-page plan, we're going to have a lot of things wrong. So it will take me 2 to 3 quarters to get it right.
That's right.
And they're like, but I'm paying you a lot of this money to get it right the first time. And I was like, even if I want, your team have no idea. Right. I'm going to rely on the answers of your team, and half of them are going to be wrong.
Right.
The only way I'm going to get it right is if I continue to challenge your team day to day in their operations, and we do all these small adjustments.
That's right.
3 months from now, you're going to love your one-page plan, or 3 quarters. But today, it's impossible you get it right. And once you get the right mindset, cleaning it and fixing it, it's easy.
That's right. That's right.
Amigo, always a pleasure. We have to see each other in Texas now, not in
hey, I think I'll see you. I think I'll see you at Harvard. Next time I see you, I'll probably be at Harvard University. That'll be pretty cool.
4 months from now.
We'll both be growing. We'll both be learning. Growth mindset, Daniel.
That's correct. Thank you, amigo. It's always a pleasure.
Take care, Daniel. Thank you very much.
By the way, sorry, last question. Where they could follow you? If someone wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way?
They can go to my website, riseperformancegroup.com.
Perfect. riseperformancegroup.com. Mark
Fenner. Of course, I'm on LinkedIn and all that stuff as well. But either way.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you, amigo.
Take care, Daniel. See you. Bye.